This is Sri Lanka, a landmass spanning over 65,000 square kilometers in the Indian Ocean. From soaring central highlands draped in emerald tea plantations to ancient monoliths rising out of dense jungle canopies, this unique geography holds thousands of years of recorded human history. What you are looking at is a complex network of ecological zones and historical capitals that defined global trade routes for centuries. The journey ahead covers towering fortresses, sacred relics, and coastal colonial ports. The exploration of this diverse island begins now. Sigiriya stands as a massive column of solid rock nearly 200 meters high. Located in the northern Matale district, this geological formation dominates the surrounding plains. In the 5th century, King Kasyapa selected this exact site for his new capital. He constructed an elaborate palace complex directly on the flat summit and decorated the lower rock faces with vibrant frescoes. About halfway up this vertical ascent, he built a monumental gateway in the form of an enormous lion. This gives the site its modern name, Lion Rock. The surrounding area features some of the oldest landscape gardens in the world, incorporating symmetrical water gardens, terraced levels, and boulder gardens that function flawlessly even today. When the king died, the capital and the royal palace were abandoned entirely. It was subsequently used as an active Buddhist monastery until the 14th century. Today, visitors navigate a series of steep staircases, clinging to the sheer rock face to reach the summit. Once at the top, the foundational ruins of the palace reveal a sophisticated urban planning layout, complete with highly advanced rainwater gathering cisterns. This isolated rock fortress remains one of the most prominent archaeological sites in all of South Asia, preserving a striking record of ancient structural engineering. Anuradhapura was the first ancient capital of Sri Lanka, established around the 4th century before the Common Era. For over 1,000 years, it operated as one of the most stable and durable centers of political power in all of South Asia. The city is famous for its well-preserved ruins and massive brick stupas, which are domed structures used for meditation. Now, the Jetavanaramaya stupa, seen here, is one of the tallest monuments in the ancient world, constructed from millions of baked bricks. This city was not just a political hub, but a major center of early engineering. Ancient rulers designed vast irrigation lakes, known as tanks, to support agriculture in a dry zone. These complex hydraulic systems still supply water to the region today. At the center of the historical site lies the Jaya Sri Maha Bodhi, a sacred fig tree planted in 288 BCE. It is documented as the oldest living human-planted tree in the world with a known planting date. Monks in traditional saffron robes still walk these ancient stone paths daily. The sheer scale of Anuradhapura highlights a civilization deeply invested in monumental architecture, permanent agriculture, and termed societal stability. Kandy served as the absolute last capital of the ancient king's era of Sri Lanka. Situated in the steep, mountainous center of the island, it successfully resisted colonial expansion for centuries, before finally falling to the British in 1815. The city centers around Kandy Lake, an artificial body of water created in 1807 by the very last Sinhalese king. Right beside this lake sits the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic, one of the most heavily guarded historical and cultural complexes in the country. Inside this royal palace complex, a relic believed to be the tooth of the Buddha is kept in a series of nested gold caskets. Daily rituals here involve traditional drummers and offerings of fresh flowers, maintaining rigid practices that have continued for hundreds of years. At high above the city on the Behirawakanda Hill sits a massive white Buddha statue, reaching 26 meters in height. It looks out over the entire valley, providing a geographic anchor to the urban sprawl below. Just outside the city limits, the Royal Botanical Gardens of Peradeniya span across a massive area of 147 acres. Originally created exclusively for Kandy and royalty, the gardens now contain over 4,000 species of plants, including a very renowned collection of orchids. Kandy remains a major cultural crossroad today, seamlessly blending historic pre-colonial architecture with the dense, vibrant daily activity of a modern, fast-moving Highland city. Polonnaruwa officially became the island's second great capital after the total destruction of Anuradhapura in the late 10th century. It reached its commercial and architectural peak during the 12th century. The historical ruins found here are much more compact and generally better preserved than those of the earlier capital. The site features the Vatadaj, a circular stone structure specifically designed to protect a central stupa. Its intricate stone carvings of lunar columns and guardian stones represent some of the absolute finest masonry from the Polonnaruwa period. Further into the complex is the Galle Vihara, a massive rock shrine where 4 enormous statues of the Buddha have been carved directly into the face of a single, large granite boulder. The largest of these is a reclining figure measuring a full 14 meters in length. The sheer precision of the stone cutting and the detail of the robes reflect a clear high point in ancient Sinhalese rock carving. Throughout the archaeological park, the remaining thick brick walls of royal palaces and council chambers stand completely exposed to the elements today, telling a story of past royal ambition. Large populations of toque macaques now inhabit these ruins, moving freely across the ancient brickwork, as if they actively own the area. Polonnaruwa provides a highly concentrated display of 12th century urban design, monumental sculpture, and continuous structural endurance. Arugam Bay sits firmly on the dry eastern coast of the island. It is primarily recognized globally as one of the top surfing destinations in the world. The bay creates a natural crescent shape, generating highly consistent point breaks as the Indian Ocean swells hit the shoreline. Surfers from across the entire globe travel here to ride waves that can often offer significantly long rides over reef and sand. Beyond the active surf culture, the open ocean waters off this particular coast support significant marine life. Pods of wild dolphins are frequently documented moving completely parallel to the sandy shoreline. Just inland from the beach, the landscape quickly shifts to dense coastal brush and wetlands. This specific area borders the famous Yala National Park, creating a very unique environment where large mammals intersect directly with coastal zones. Sri Lankan elephants are regularly seen wandering near the freshwater sources, sometimes grazing in the marshlands just meters away from the open ocean. Traditional fishing remains a vital and core part of the daily local economy, with dozens of highly colorful, carved wooden outrigger canoes lined up along the high tide mark. This specific coastal region perfectly demonstrates the sharp geographical contrast of Sri Lanka, where extreme open ocean currents directly meet untamed wildlife habitats on a regular daily basis. Galle is a major city situated on the extreme southwestern tip of Sri Lanka. Its most defining feature is the massive Galle Fort, originally built by the Portuguese in 1588, and later extensively fortified by the Dutch during the 17th century. The thick stone seawalls wrap entirely around a peninsula, effectively protecting the historical grid of streets inside from both military attacks and extreme ocean weather. The prominent white lighthouse standing on the southeastern bastion was erected much later in 1939, serving as a critical navigational aid for ships entering the harbor. Inside the ramparts, the architecture is a dense collision of European colonial styles and South Asian traditions. Heavy stone walls, terracotta roofs, and shaded courtyards define the narrow streets. This fort is the largest remaining fortress in Asia, built entirely by early European occupiers. Despite centuries of changing control and constant natural erosion, the structural integrity of the ramparts remains completely intact today. The preservation of Galle Fort provides a distinct record of global maritime expansion and coastal military defense engineering. Yala is a small town located high in the central Uva province, sitting at a towering elevation of over 1,000 meters. This mountainous region marks a drastic shift in climate from the lower coastal plains, offering significantly cooler temperatures and dense cloud cover. The landscape is sharply defined by steep valleys, vast tea estates, and sheer rock drops. Just outside the main town, Ravana Falls descends rapidly over multiple steep tiers of dark granite. The heavy water flow cuts directly through the thick highland vegetation. The area is also deeply famous for its mountain railway network, constructed during the late 19th century to easily transport tea down to the coastal ports. The most iconic piece of this engineering is the massive 9-arch bridge located in Damodara. Built entirely from solid brick, rock, and cement without a single piece of steel, this viaduct spans a deep gorge, completely surrounded by dense jungle. Passenger trains still run on this track daily, carefully navigating tight mountain curves and steep gradients. Heavy morning mists routinely blanket these high peaks, drastically limiting visibility before completely burning off by midday. This entire region reveals how massive colonial infrastructure projects were carved into highly challenging topographies. Yet the absolute deepest historical secrets of this remote island remain completely hidden just up ahead. Moving from the high elevation rainforests into the arid southern plains, the topography of Sri Lanka shifts drastically into a wide, open, sun-baked savanna. This is Udawalawe National Park, an expansive protected zone covering over 30,000 hectares. Established in 1972 specifically to protect the catchment area of the massive Udawalawe Reservoir, this dry zone environment currently operates as one of the most vital wildlife sanctuaries on the island. It is globally recognized for supporting a highly concentrated and stable population of Sri Lankan elephants. During the annual dry season, large herds of these mammals continuously navigate the open scrublands, moving along ancient historical corridors to reach the receding waterlines. The landscape is a rigid cycle of monsoon rains and intense drought, forcing all native species into a highly synchronized rhythm of survival. Beyond the elephant herds, the park contains a complex avian ecosystem. Sri Lankan peafowl frequently occupy the upper branches of dead trees, displaying their distinct blue and green plumage against the dry canopy. In the shallow wetlands, large groups of water buffalo submerge themselves, almost entirely in thick mud, to effectively regulate their core body temperatures. Spotted deer graze carefully along the forest edges, monitoring the tree line for predators. Visitors navigate these unpaved tracks in open vehicles, observing an active biological network functioning directly alongside active agricultural boundaries. Unawatuna Beach forms a dramatic, sweeping crescent of golden sand directly along the southern coast of the island. Historically, this specific geographic bay was heavily protected by a massive double coral reef system, making it one of the absolute safest swimming and maritime anchorage locations in the entire region. Over the past few decades, rapid coastal development, changing ocean temperatures, and extensive commercial fishing operations have significantly altered the delicate underwater infrastructure. Despite these ongoing and highly visible environmental shifts, the clear waters and highly consistent ocean swells continue to draw international travelers, free divers, and surfers throughout the entire calendar year. The bay itself is densely framed by tropical palm forests that push directly up to the high tide line, creating a stark visual border between natural growth and expanding human coastal infrastructure. Dominating the high western headland of the bay is the Japanese Peace Pagoda, a brilliant white domed stupa constructed by Japanese Buddhist monks in 2004. It was designed and positioned specifically as a prominent monument to inspire continuous global harmony. From its elevated vantage point on the rocky cliffside, the pagoda provides an unbroken, sweeping panoramic view of the vast Indian Ocean. This specific coastal stretch perfectly highlights the intense, ongoing geographic friction between preserving ancient marine ecosystems and actively supporting a modern, rapidly expanding local tourism and service economy along a highly active coastal shoreline. Mirissa sits further along the southern coastline, operating as a highly active fishing port and a major global hub for marine observation. Every single morning, dozens of wooden outrigger canoes and modern passenger vessels depart from the protected harbor, navigating directly into the deep waters of the Indian Ocean. Just a few nautical miles off this specific shoreline, the continental shelf drops off rapidly, creating deep underwater canyons. These extreme oceanic trenches force cold, nutrient-rich currents to the surface, establishing one of the most reliable migration corridors in the world for large marine mammals. It is within these exact offshore boundaries that the blue whale, scientifically documented as the largest animal known to ever exist on Earth, can be observed. Growing up to 30 meters in length and weighing over 150 tons, these massive mammals surface to exhale towering columns of mist before diving back into the frigid depths to feed. Surfers also frequent the coastal breaks, riding the highly consistent swells that hit the shallow sandbars. Mirissa perfectly demonstrates the sheer physical scale of Sri Lanka's marine borders, where casual coastal recreation intersects directly with the migration paths of the ocean's most massive and elusive deep water predators. Kalpitiya is a highly unique and dynamic geological formation located on the northwestern coast. It consists of a long, narrow sand spit that physically separates the expansive Puttalam Lagoon from the open waters of the Indian Ocean. This precise geographic positioning channels exceptionally strong and consistent trade winds across the flat water, firmly establishing the peninsula as a world-class destination for competitive kite surfing. Riders actively utilize these shallow, enclosed lagoon waters to execute high-speed aerial maneuvers. Along the ocean-facing beaches, the local economy remains heavily reliant on traditional, large-scale commercial net fishing operations. Entire coastal communities work closely together to manually haul massive, heavy yellow fishing nets from the surf in a highly coordinated, daily physical effort. Further inland, towering modern wind turbines capitalize on the exact same coastal trade winds, generating significant and sustainable renewable energy for the expanding national power grid. Kalpitiya stands as a highly complex geographic intersection where centuries-old manual fishing traditions, modern renewable energy infrastructure, and thriving extreme water sports all operate simultaneously and flawlessly on a single shifting strip of coastal sand. Yala National Park forms a massive, protected wilderness boundary on the southeastern edge of the island, where dense, dry monsoon forests run directly into the warm coastal waters of the Indian Ocean. This diverse ecosystem supports an enormous array of wildlife, beginning right at the shoreline where sea turtles frequently navigate the shallow, sunlit coral beds. Moving inland, the park is most globally famous for its highly dense population of apex predators. Yala contains one of the highest recorded densities of wild Sri Lankan leopards anywhere in the world. These highly elusive cats expertly navigate the rocky outcrops and thick underbrush, remaining perfectly camouflaged against the dappled light of the forest floor. The surrounding environment is an active mosaic of freshwater lakes and brackish lagoons. In the muddy shallows, large painted storks methodically hunt for small fish, while heavy wild boars forage constantly along the muddy water's edge throughout the day. Directly below the surface of these ponds, massive mugger crocodiles lie completely motionless, waiting silently and patiently for any unsuspecting grazing animals to approach the bank. Yala actively preserves a critical baseline of native biodiversity, ensuring that the island's most dominant and fragile species continue to survive within an unforgiving, entirely raw biological habitat. The complete geographic and historical identity of Sri Lanka is carved deeply into its soaring central highlands, its dense, ancient cities, and its deep coastal waters. This is a landmass spanning over 65,000 square kilometers, where centuries of maritime trade have left permanent markers across the landscape. High in the mountainous interior, the landscape remains heavily dominated by massive, terraced green tea plantations. Brought to the island during the British colonial period in the 19th century, Ceylon tea fundamentally transformed the national economy and established permanent global trade routes. Even today, thousands of agricultural workers manually harvest the delicate top leaves, perfectly maintaining an intensive physical tradition that has survived for over 150 years.